Hello and welcome to the Elsie B. Smith Show. My guest today is Renee Baribeau, and the topic is When God Was Wind. Welcome to the show, Renee.
I'm so thrilled to be here with you, SB.
Let me tell you something about Renee. She's a wind whistler, she's a soul coach, a Hay House author, inspirational speaker, entrepreneur, workshop leader, and she's known and respected for her down-to-earth approach. During her life, the wind gods have steered Renee's course in many directions. Now, people are seeking a direct experience of God, emanating and non-dualistic forces of nature can provide. Nature gods can fill the God-shaped hole plaguing society. And ancient cross-cultural wind gods and goddesses offer persistent guidance to restore faith in humanity. I'm hooked. Going back to the title of the show, When God Was Wind. Renee, what do you mean when God was wind?
Oh, wind was here first. And what does that mean? It means that at the beginning, that the wind was here, the wind stirred, the wind moved, and over the course of time, people would navigate their lives based on the wind. Reindeer still navigate their lives based in the wind. And then a couple thousand years ago or so, give or take a few years, when religions came in, they began to they took this wind, this idea of the wind energy, and Ruach is a wind, the Holy Spirit is a wind, Nirvana is a place of no wind. So what happened was, where we used to have a polytheistic viewpoint of God, and there was a plethora of gods for people to source from, we made it that there was one true God, and the rest became false. And that might have served us for the last 2,000 years, but right now it's no longer serving us, and people need access. They need a direct experience of God, because people have lost their faith, lost their way, and I'm suggesting that we can find our way back to God through nature.
Yeah, I was talking to other people about the people, communities turning their back on religion, which is great, which is people's choice. But in the process, they took away the moral structure that was given. And it sounds to me like you now have found a way to put that moral structure back.
The structure is building itself. I've built a wind clan, and people are kind of gathering there to support themselves. And then my goal and hope for them is that they will support their community. Because about 40 years ago, when we exited the church, that mass exodus that's been going on for the last, 2 generations, what it's done is it's left us with some millennials who are lost, and their parents who are sort of lost. And so my mother used to send me to Sunday school every Sunday. I was taught ritual. And so we have these generations now that say, oh, well, you don't need that anymore. You can have a spirit. But even more confounded was that during this period, people lied. When the Gallup poll would come around, they'd say, yeah, we go to church. And so they made this, so not only weren't they going to church, but they were instilling false religious values into their children's minds. So now we have adults who have children who have no structure. You're right. It's a lack of structure.
Part of the blog that you provided for my website indicated that you came across 28 different cultures that have a wind of spirit. Tell me about that. That must have been fascinating research.
It really was. When I first got going, and all of a sudden I started to find wind stories, and then I started to, my little hot air balloon of inspiration was taking me further and further. I actually uncovered 150 wind gods and goddesses. And
Goodness.
Yes, and I couldn't, because I'm not adept at all languages and things like that, then I kind of narrowed the playing field to the ones that I could find information on. And so what came about was 28 winds and the 4 cardinal wind directions and a no wind, so that's actually 33, that wanted to be included. And to the point where my last wind was the Latvian wind mother. And I couldn't find anything on that wind. And then I decided, oh, okay, well, I might have to let that one go. And then the next day, 50 pages of Latvian mythology appear like out of nowhere. And Vegemite appeared as a divine wind mother. Several of these are wind mothers, and the Basque wind goddess Mari is akin to the divine mother. So these wind energies, these wind archetypes, have really pre-existed religions.
So talk about synchronicity. Just as you were giving up, some wind god said, you've still got work to do.
Yes. Well, I really wanted her, but I was really thought that I wasn't going to be able to get the information. And this spring, when I presented at Religion and Society, there was someone from Latvia who was talking about the old religions. And I said, oh, do you know Vegemite? And she looked at me like that I was from outer space. So a lot of these wind people, these wind ideas have been lost within the cultures as well. And so it's there. The time is now.
You mentioned that for the past 2,000 years, it hasn't been emphasized that much. So in your research, you then had to go way, way back, more over 2,000 years ago. Where did you get all this information?
It was there, and it revealed itself. And I found information about the winds on the earliest tablets from Mesopotamia. The cardinal winds have created a structure for our humanity since the dawn of time, as much as I can guess, and for sure the written word. And you know, there's the story about Adepa and the south wind. And so there's always been a need to structure our reality, our world. And I believe since the winds were that moving force of nature, it just seemed to be one that people could directly connect to. And, you know, one wind, I'm sorry, but the one wind, like I was looking for Yangdong Halmang, and it was a Korean wind. And I'm thinking, I'm reading all the Muslim stuff about Korea, and I'm thinking, like, she just couldn't exist in this culture. And then I thought maybe the spelling was wrong. The next thing I know, I found this island called Jeju, where there was a mother god, and it was the culture of the giants. And there was Jeju, who came once a year, and they had a whole ceremony around her about how the harvest was going to be on this volcanic island. And so the stories revealed themselves to me in an order that was not anything to do with my planning.
You're talking about having a direct experience of the wind god. Now, what does that look like? I'm asking that because, firstly, because I don't know, and secondly, because you live in a country where there's so many hurricanes, which is wind, like Hurricane Harvey right now. Tell us, how does this direct experience look like?
That's an interesting question. One of my Wind Clan members just took the energy of Hurricane Harvey and tied it into some wind knots. Many in the 1500s, 1600s, the sailors went to the wind witches to get wind knots. They were a strand of rope, and they were tied in storms in order to have energy when the boat needed to sail, and they got into a place where there was the doldrums and no wind. So the hurricanes and things, and how I've related that back into the book that's coming, is about wind intensity. It's not so much that I'm going to get out to know about Hurricane Harvey per se. But if you start to look at wind intensity in your own life, you can look at, okay, sometimes there's a nice, gentle, soft breeze giving me a little kiss on the cheek. And then sometimes there's a Hurricane Harvey that's going to come through, and what Houston's going through today, where, you know, it's being flooded. The wind is there, and if you look at it, it's going to cleanse Houston. Whether or not Houston was wanting or ready or needed, or like several years ago when the dike broke over in New Orleans, you know, you might look that for years and years there was all this black magic going on there, and we're having an upturning of the world, and the wind is going to be certainly a part of how this revolution looks. And natural disasters are Mother Nature's way of letting us know that there is a God that's bigger than us and that we can't control it.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I lived in Cape Town for a while, and before I moved to Cape Town, I was aware of the Southeaster, and there were all sorts of, talk. I thought it was mythical about the municipality or the local council tying ropes between parking meters so that people could hold onto the ropes when they walk along the street and not be blown over. My goodness, when I moved to Cape Town, I discovered that it was not a myth. It was a practical thing that they did every spring when the Southeaster came up. And there was also this talk about, the blowing wind clearing out all the viruses and all the stuff from winter and just creating a lovely spring.
Exactly. They say March wind brings April showers. And when we start to attune ourselves to nature, and it's funny because you said something about it earlier about these cycles, like that there's gaps in cycles. There's a time for planting, a time for sowing, a time for harvesting, and then there's that time for hibernation. Well, that's how, if we understood that this is the natural cycle of life and death and decay, then we would understand so much better how our relationships work, how our careers work, how birthing a book works. The cycles of birthing a book have been so aligned into the nature where seeds were planted and, something grew and weeded and through many cycles. So I think that basically this is a simple approach to getting back to living your life based on nature.
And how would I go about having a direct wind experience?
I first thought that this was a metaphor, and then I began to see that they were really, living energies. But the best way for you to go out and have a direct experience is to go take a wind walk. And a wind walk means you go outside your house, and so say you're contemplating something today. You greet the wind and acknowledge that the wind is going to help you sift through whatever this is you're contemplating. And you'll know once there's a movement of the breeze that you've got some kind of connection, and then you walk.
Okay.
You disengage from maybe your cell phones and other things, but you walk. And for me, by the end of the walk, I'm always granted the information or some kind of insight, or even like the other day, I did this and all of a sudden I got a shift in perception that all of a sudden I could see that the clouds were fluffy and I found sage on the mountain. And the very act of welcoming into the wind brings you present where all the magic happens.
So having a direct wind experience, going outside of my house, feeling the wind on my skin, it sounds to me like a form of meditation.
Well, I'm not one who meditates very well, so call it whatever you want. But it's a method which you come present into the moment, and then you can allow for spirit to inform you.
You were referring earlier on to the wind knots that the ancient sailors used. Do you, by any chance, have an example that you can show me? I know it's unfair you didn't prepare for this one.
Well, so we did an exercise in the Wind Clan group where everyone tied wind knots, and one wind knot, in the first wind knot, when you untie it, you tie them in the wind, and there's a process on my website and a video, and you tie them in the wind. You don't let anyone see them. There's sacred thing that go on your altar, and then when you need a boost of energy, you release the first wind knot. One wind believer, when she released the first wind knot, as soon as she released it, she got a new client. I mean, things just started to move in her life. Last month, I was talking about things that I was burdened with, things that were taking up my time that I didn't need anymore in my life. And I had that third wind knot tied. And I untied it on the dock, and within 24 hours, this one thing that I didn't need in my life anymore was pulled out from underneath me like a carpet. And it was so expedient again, you never know. Spirit gives you what you need, because not only was that removed, but there was a relationship attached to it that was taken with it as well. And then there was, within a few weeks, another thing that had been on this list that I stated out loud that I just didn't have time for anymore. Boom, that was gone too. And so it works.
It sounds like an amazing way of tuning into things.
I wasn't even tuned in. I was just like blown away. I was like, wow. I still get surprised. So in the sailing days, one knot was for a gentle breeze, 2 knots was if you needed a steady wind, and 3 knots, when you released that third knot, was to all harry-carry, a gale wind. A lot of times it took the ship down. I'm not sure why they thought they needed that third wind, but sometimes you need to turn over your life, like what's going on in the world right now. We're flipping over to right ourselves again. Indeed.
You came to London earlier in 2017 to address a conference, and there was a video that I saw of that, in which you did some wind whistling. Tell me about that.
The wind whistling. The wind whistle. When I was in Mexico a few years ago, I was at the pyramids in Mexico City, Teotihuacan, and I heard this whistle. And I had already bought one of those souvenir whistles, and I went over to the man and I said, I have to trade you. I mean, and so I ended up getting this whistle. And then I was working with one of my coaching clients, and we started pulling in a wind every week and then blowing the wind whistle. And she was quite a visionary, and between her and I, our visions were almost matched with our own symbols. And we saw that when the wind whistle blows, the wind actually shows up. And they showed up very differently. So I did pull a wind this morning, and I have Amunet, and it's the Egyptian wind of obscurity. They all have their own archetypes. And this was about opening your eyes. So if you'd like, I can call in Amunet, and people can have a direct experience with the wind whistle.
That would be lovely, yes.
Okay, so close your eyes, everyone, at home where you're watching from. And we're going to call to Amunet.
Oh, I got goosebumps.
Oh,
I can
good.
just imagine. I can just imagine the impact of this having, your own wind whistle, or having somebody like you in the room and blowing that whistle.
Yes, I sent out 35 wind whistles last week, and they went to Australia, to Ireland, to Finland. I'm going to get a little
Yeah.
map of where the wind whistlers are, and we did a very powerful solar eclipse meditation, and it was extremely. When you're calling upon the forces of nature as an active participant in your prayers, it's powerful work.
Mm. And you have a Facebook group, which I'm going to show on the screen now.
Okay.
Thank you. There you go. Wind Believers, it's called, where people can join this group and they can get more information about the work that you do with the winds and the wind whistling and everything.
Yes, and also it's a very supportive clan. There's people there who really share from their hearts and are really there to be of support to each other. It's pretty special.
And I actually saw a map that you showed the other day about where these wind whistlers are on in the world, and it looks like you're starting to cover the globe. It's quite impressive.
I know, it's exciting.
Yeah, there's obviously a need for this. You fulfill some sort of need in people.
I think that, when you hear the story of the Indian guru who has millions of followers, who gets convicted of rape, I think that the days of the guru is over. What I like about this wind work so much is that, you can access it yourself. You don't need someone on a pedestal any longer to tell you how to have a direct experience of God. You can walk outside and get wind slapped by yourself. Like, I was being out of integrity a few weeks ago, and I went outside and the wind gave me a stern talking to.
Yeah. And you were receptive to that, and you listened, and you made the changes that you needed to make.
I have, and I searched for God for my whole lifetime, and now I feel really held. Like the message that Amunet just shared as I was whistling, they were threads that I was seeing, that there's invisible threads going on in the universe that we can't even necessarily know at the moment. And so they're just, we don't even have the words to put into action what's going on at the moment. We don't have that vision yet. And rightly so.
But you do have the words. I'm referring to the book that is called Winds of Spirit, Ancient Wisdom Tools for Navigating Relationships, Health, and the Divine. That's not out yet. It's coming out early next year. Is that right? Early in 2018.
It is coming out February 6th, but you can all help. You can go over to Amazon and pre-order it. Pre-order 10, get one for each of your friends, because you're going to want to. And well, I'm trying to get to the New York Times bestseller list by February. The day the book goes out, I would like to have sold 30,000 copies. So I've had it up as far as 15 in the shaman and 100 in the religion. So pre-order one over at Amazon, please. If you felt anything when that wind whistle blew, you know that this might have something for you.
Absolutely. I would encourage everybody, because I'm sure that is going to be such a lovely read. And I'm glad that you mentioned the New York Times bestseller, because that's where you're going to end up. There's no doubt in my mind about it. If anybody can help you get there, that's part of their destiny. That is part of their mission as well.
Yes, because I believe that all the wind whistlers have come along. When I first, trust me, when I first got this book, because I thought I was just writing a coaching handbook about pointing, is your compass pointing true north? When I realized it isn't true north at all that they've been, shoving at us all these years. It's magnetic north. Your body is aligned to your own magnetic north. A sailor, a ship captain navigates the boat from their wheelhouse. I don't navigate from yours. I navigate from my place. So if we were all busy navigating from our own wheelhouses, we would know which way the winds were blowing and how to best sail through life. It's really very simple.
Mm-hmm. And it's all explained in the book, which we can pre-order. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Renee, thank you for your time. It's been really interesting. And I will also add a copy of the cover of your book to this video recording, so that people definitely have no excuse so that they know where to find you. Okay. Thank you for the time. Thank you for getting up so early on a Sunday morning.
Well, thank you, Elsabé, for being such a delightful person in this world who gives from your heart. I've known you, since the Next Top Author, and I'm honored to be with you today. Thank you so much.
And we've got a fascinating topic coming up for next week, Sunday, same place, same time, 4 o'clock UK time. See you then. Thank you and goodbye.